I'm Damien from Advanced Therapy Solutions. Today we're going to show you one of my favourites, the dorsal finger-based splint. So we're doing a dorsal finger-based splint. So we're positioning the person's hand. In this case we do need the whole finger on the page, and in fact it's probably better to have it in the middle of the page, although not essential. We're going to do it on the middle finger in this case. So I just want an outline of the finger. Okay, notice that my pen is perfectly vertical. I want to mark where the nail is. I want to mark DIP and PIP joint. We can see easily where the base of the finger is. The advantage of a dorsal splint is that you get better leverage because it can sit as proximal as possible on the proximal phalanx. Remembering the proximal phalanx goes all the way to here. With a volar splint, you can't quite do that. Okay, take your hand away. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're just doing the outline of our splint. Of course, we want it to be about half the circumference. I'm making a little tab at the proximal edge which gets pulled right around, and we're keeping about half a centimetre extra the whole way around. Okay, and that becomes our pattern. And again, very simple step of just cutting out the pattern of our splint. We've ended up with this little surfboard shape. And we just transfer that across to our thermoplastic. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes for this thermoplastic to heat completely in the water. And we've got our gauge, if you just zoom in on the side here, we've got our gauge set to about 70, although the manufacturer suggests 65 degrees. We're just cutting out that pattern. Again, this is a little more intricate, so I probably would cut out the thermoplastic when it's warm. It's just slightly easier on both your hands and your scissors, but it's not essential. So we want to set up a patient there with their elbow on the table and the affected finger sort of directly in front of you. Unlike the hand and the wrist-based splints, you want to be directly in front of the person. Just using our little pattern here, we can even see how the splint's going to fit on the finger. Okay, so it's going to sit like that basically. Now we've got the choice, depending on the condition that we're using to treat here, of whether we splint the PIP joint in slight flexion, and that would be for a volar plate injury, or if someone's had an old volar plate injury and they've got a slight fixed flexion deformity, we can mould this splint completely straight so that we can use it to pull the finger up into extension. Okay, we're ready to put our hot thermoplastic on. Now remember, we're just aligning the thermoplastic close to the finger, and we secure it by using this tab at the bottom. Bring it around so that it sticks to itself. Use the stretch in the material. Okay, so it's now stuck on the finger, it's not going to go anywhere, and we can position our patient. Okay, so in this case we're just contouring the plastic, but we're going to have the finger in slight flexion. So in slight flexion like that. Good. And again, less is more. If the patient's compliant, there's no need to touch the thermoplastic. Now, so we're just marking our edges to cut down. We don't want it to really rub in the web space here, so we just want to draw our line to clear that a little bit. Okay, we want to bring this as proximal as possible, but we don't really want it to rub as the person extends their finger. So I'm just going to shorten that proximal edge a little bit. And similarly on the ulnar border of the web space, so in there. Okay, we want this to be, like all of our splints, to be strong. It has to be at least half the circumference, and same on the ulnar border. Then we just simply crack our little tab and the whole piece will come off. Okay. it's ready to be cut. We're just cutting along our cutting edges here. So what I tend to do is just shorten that slightly so that there's a slight gap between our tab and this edge of our splint. Oops, I forgot to mark the end, but you can see the tip of the finger, there's a small imprint there. You can probably just make that out in the camera. But I'm just going to round the distal end of the splint off there. So I'm just going to round that off there. We just don't want it to irritate the fingernail, that's all. We've got our 3 straps that we're going to attach to the splint. They're all half the width of a normal strap. And similar principle on this one now, we're going to heat the Velcro loop for 3 seconds, heat our little tab for 3 seconds, be careful not to burn yourself there, and we're just going to attach them together. Okay, remembering we want that strap to utilise the full length of the thermoplastic. So our splint is that long, we want our proximal strap to attach as close to the proximal edge as possible. Okay, the other 2 straps, one's going to go just distal to our PIP joint. Normally I would mark these, so just distal to our PIP joint, so there. Okay, again pressing it into the thermoplastic. You can align your strap once it's on there, so it's still hot enough, you can still align it. It's going to come around to the radial side. And our distal strap, we want it to just sit on the distal phalanx. Velcro hook on. Three seconds. Heat our thermoplastic for 3 seconds also. That was a quick. Okay, this is our finished product. Often we'd have something on the finger. You know, fingers are always quite swollen after they're injured, so a bit of Coban is usually applied underneath. In this case, I haven't done that. So that proximal strap, you can see that it goes off on that diagonal angle towards the proximal end of our splint. That's really important. Our middle strap just distal to the PIP joint, and our distal strap sitting along the distal phalanx. Okay, and we're just rounding off those edges. This is our finished product. Keeping the finger in slight flexion. We can undo these distal straps if we want our patient to exercise. So just bending the tip of your finger now. Good. And we can undo the next strap and just bending the whole end of your finger. Good. And back up into the splint and secured there. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.